Have you ever wondered what it would be like to see the world through the eyes of an intelligence analyst just for one day? Well, today, that's exactly what we're doing. We're going to peel back the curtain on a single 24-hour cycle of classified briefings and reports. Forget the spin, forget the news anchors. We're talking about the raw data that shapes our world, from way behind the scenes. You know how it is. Every single day, we're just flooded with news headlines. But what's really going on underneath all that noise? What are the stories that are unfolding in those classified memos and secret briefings? The ones that shape our world in ways we rarely get to see. That's the big question we're tackling here. And get this. One particular day's intelligence drop was, it was a real puzzle. On the surface, the pieces seem to have absolutely nothing in common. I mean, you've got a mysterious vehicle stashed away on a naval base, a secret web of international arms deals, and this huge corporate battle over the future of AI. How do those even connect? But if you look just a little bit closer, a thread starts to emerge. And our goal right now in this explainer is to follow that thread. We're going to connect the dots and see what kind of picture these briefings are painting, just beneath the surface. All right, so let's start with a classic, a real cornerstone of government secrecy, the unknown in our skies. For decades, right, people have been asking, what's really going on up there? And honestly, the answers still seem just as elusive as the phenomena themselves. So these briefings on UAPs, or unidentified anomalous phenomena, they reveal two totally different kinds of secrecy. First, you got physical secrecy. We're talking about an alleged exotic vehicle that's been locked away on a naval base in Maryland for decades, with zero official explanation of what it is or how it even got there. Then you've got this bureaucratic secrecy. There's this strange, invisible line over the Atlantic, and when aircraft cross it, the entire system for reporting these things just switches. For no reason. It's basically a gap in the data that was created on purpose. And look, this isn't just fringe stuff we're talking about. This topic goes all the way to the top. I mean, you have a former president, Barack Obama, who just flat out says aliens exist on a podcast, only to immediately walk it back a little, with some qualifications. It's the perfect example of the whole paradox, right? It's a subject that everybody's interested in, officials included, but it's always wrapped up in this cloud of ambiguity and really carefully worded non-denials. Okay, so let's shift gears. We're moving from mysteries up in the sky to secrets that are very much grounded in geopolitics. And there's one country that kept popping up in this intelligence drop, Australia. The story here seems to be all about these deep and often totally unacknowledged alliances. So when you actually look at the data, a really clear pattern starts to emerge, and it stretches back decades. We're talking all the way from newly declassified documents confirming a U.S. role in the 1975 dismissal of a prime minister, to what's happening today with reports of undisclosed F-35 parts transfers and trials of so-called battle-tested AI targeting systems. When you put it all together, these points show a really consistent, really significant strategic alignment that's happening, almost entirely behind closed doors. Okay, and this is where it gets really complex, because at the exact same time that these covert military ties are getting stronger, an Australian court makes this landmark acknowledgement about the systematic annihilation of Palestinians. And that creates this massive contradiction, doesn't it? On one hand, you have a public legal acknowledgement of a crisis, and on the other, you have a deepening of the very military and trade relationships that are central to it. And what's more, Australia has taken this really hardline stance against regulating autonomous weapons. That puts them way outside the growing international consensus. So it really paints a picture of a nation that's making these deliberate, private, strategic choices that seem to go in a completely different direction from its public statements and what its own courts are acknowledging. All right, that brings us to our third and final piece of the puzzle. We're shifting away from physical secrets and geopolitical moves to the real battleground of the 21st century, information and artificial intelligence. And this is where secrecy, power, and ethics are colliding like never before. So first, let's talk about how information itself is managed. This briefing had an analysis of something it called the alibi machine. And listen, this is not just random fake news we're talking about. It's a very structured three-step system for basically manufacturing a story. It starts with a political actor, then friendly media outlets kind of launder it and make it seem legit, and finally, social networks spread it around until it's just accepted as truth. It's literally a blueprint for how modern disinformation works. Okay, now let's bring money into the mix. The intelligence drop pointed to a massive $200 million Pentagon contract with a big AI company called Anthropic. It was a huge investment in cutting-edge AI for sure, but it came with some serious strings attached. And then, just like that, the deal was terminated. Why? Well, it turns out Anthropic had actually built ethical restrictions into its AI, specifically to stop it from being used for mass surveillance and autonomous weapons. And yeah, that's the very same technology Australia is refusing to regulate. See how this is connecting? And this is where the pressure got really intense. According to the Electronic Frontier Foundation, the Department of Defense didn't just, disagree. They allegedly gave them an ultimatum. Either you get rid of your ethical safeguards, or we might just designate your American company as a foreign agent. I mean, that is a huge escalation, and it just shows you this massive collision between corporate ethics and the demands of national security. Okay, so now we have our three big pieces of the puzzle, right? Unexplained objects in the sky, these covert alliances on the ground, and this really high-stakes fight over the ethics of AI. By themselves, they're just, isolated stories from some intelligence feed. But when you put them all together, they start to reveal a hidden connection. So what on earth could aliens, Australia, and AI possibly have in common? It sounds like the setup to a really weird joke, right? An impossible riddle. But when you look at them through this lens of what's happening behind the scenes, a really clear theme starts to pop out. The common thread? It's the gap. In every single one of these stories, there is this widening canyon between what is being said publicly and what is actually being done. There's a gap between the public story and the classified reality of some exotic vehicle. There's a gap between Australia's official humanitarian stance and its secret military deals. And there's this huge gap between the ethics of an AI company and the hardcore demands of its own government. This isn't just about secrets anymore. It's about the growing space between two completely different versions of reality. But it's so important to remember that not everything that's hidden is a conspiracy, right? Not every mystery is a secret being kept by someone. Because that same day's briefing also had a totally different kind of mystery, a natural nuclear reactor in Africa that operated 2 billion years ago. It was a mind-blowing secret, but one hidden by geology and time, not by governments. It's a great reminder that the world still holds these incredible mysteries that are just waiting to be discovered, not declassified. And so all of this leaves us with one final question. In a world that's so defined by these gaps, the gap between what we're told and what's really happening, between what's known and what's hidden, who actually gets to write the real story of our time? Is it the governments, the corporations, the whistleblowers, or someone else entirely? Definitely something to think about.